today COVID has this virus pandemic has created a crisis and or a sense of crisis, certainly. I think the real crisis is climate change, actually, which is affecting the planet and which is affecting the way we organize our built environment or should be organizing our built environment. But now the pandemic has actually overridden the crisis of climate and produced a fresh crisis, which is the crisis of, you might say, public health. And and in this connection, I also want to point out that, and something that I've written about, and I think I've actually mentioned all of these things in my talk in December. I have mentioned all that in the 20th century, for the first time in human history, the concern of urban development experts changed from public health to transportation. And before the 20th century, right up to the 19th century, we've had thousands of years of urbanization. Not hundreds, thousands. And we always, as far as I can make out, based our urban development strategy on public health. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, whatever excavations have revealed of the town plans have revealed that they were very concerned about public health, and the drainage framework was very clearly laid out. It's only in the 20th century that the paradigm has changed, and it became mobility, it became transportation. And there was a very good reason for it, because somehow, or let's say, I don't know the reason, but whatever reason, this did happen. And as a result, we've had the market, a global market developing very quickly in the 20th century. And we have come across, and now you can see that the pandemic is actually being created because of our ability to move around the planet so easily. So all the countries and the cities where the population is very mobile, they are the ones who are affected the most. And the only cure that society has found for this is lockdown, is to stop people moving. So suddenly there is a kind of revolution going on, I think, on the planet, where the gaze is again shifting from mobility to health. And I think it's a very good thing. And I think it's part of the larger crisis facing humanity, which is the climate crisis, which largely, scientists tell us, has been caused by the way we build our cities in the last 200 years, 250 years. You see, a paradigm shift takes a long time to happen. It doesn't happen quickly. And clearly, the paradigm shift is happening again. And I think it started to happen with the beginning of the 21st century, the end of the 20th century. But it is taking its own time. And COVID will certainly speed up the transition. But certainly at the moment, you see, all we are reading about, the analyses that we are reading about and hearing about are by economists. Nobody is asking an ecologist to give a analysis of what's going on and how things are going to change. Everybody's asking economists. And I'm afraid, at least my own view is that it's 20th century economics which is the root of the problem. And it has been not a real economics. It's not been the science of, which is being projected in the 20th century. But it has been a kind of crazy religious cultist kind of belief systems, which economists, because they've managed to grab the wheels of power. And so it's like any elite. It's completely closed world. They have their own jargon. They have their own language. And it's an in language which they're, all of them, I won't name anybody, but all of them are living within a closed world. They are not seeing the planet as a whole. They are not seeing humanity as living species, which are threatened with survival of the entire species. This, to my mind, is a fundamental philosophical flaw in 20th century thinking. It's led by economists, and I'm afraid we're all following them. So the transition that's going to happen in planning, town planning, the town planners are also listening to economists, and they're all working out analyses of, what costs more or less. I don't know what these people do. I find modern economics to be absolutely banal and senseless and philosophically unsound. It is not based on an understanding of reality. So that is the answer to that. Is as far as I've got. Change will come because it is inevitable, and it has been coming because the climate crisis has forced the planet, people on the human society, to think afresh about many things that we took for granted in the 20th century. And we all know that the great big political systems of the 20th century, the USSR collapsed. Now capitalism has collapsed. It is very clear. I mean, the collapse of the what are they called, stock markets in 2008, 2009 was a very clear sign that this was the end of capitalism. But it was shored up because there is too much at stake. So it was shored up and patched up. Now COVID, I think, will probably, will be another sort of death blow. But whether it will die in the next 10 years or not, I do not know. I wish it does, because 2030 is being given to us by the scientists as a very important time period within which we have to control very many features of the climate crisis. And if we can't do that, then we may get into a situation where we cannot control it at all. This issue of irreversibility of the climate change has been under discussion since the end of the last century.